Terrific. Welcome. Great to connect with everyone again. Wonderful to see you. And thank you again for everyone who sent in questions. I love receiving them because that's what these webinars are about. It's about what is really relevant to you and what you would like to know. As always, there's a lot to talk about, a lot to get through. So I'm going to hand straight over to my co-host, Craig, Chief Education Officer. He will remind you of, how to use the icons, how to type in any questions that come up for you while I'm speaking, how to use the surveys, and then we'll get straight into it. So over to you, Craig.
Great, thanks, Helena. Hi, everyone, and welcome again this evening to webinar number 4. So just a reminder, down the bottom of your screen, there is a couple of icons that you might want to look at. You have the chat button. If you click on that, what will happen is you'll have that pop up on your left or right-hand side, and at any time you can ask some questions in there, and I'll send some stuff through there as well. So we've just got one question. Somebody already knows how to use it, so well done. The other one is on the right-hand side down the bottom there is the one that says reactions, and there's a person clapping or there's a thumbs up there. So from time to time, we'll ask you, what did you think of that? And you can obviously clap or put a thumbs up or whatever you'd like. So no problems with that at all. So they're the two major things. From time to time, I'll put up a question. You just click on the answers and away we go. So Pat's already got the thumbs up. Good on you, Pat. So working nicely. So they're the three things you need to know: the chat, reactions, and we'll be doing the polls, and you just answer the questions, click on the questions, and I'll do the rest for you. So enjoy this evening. I'm watching and monitoring, and we'll answer those questions that come up throughout the night for you. So back over to you, Helena.
Terrific, thank you. Okay, so I'd like to start with tonight's overview. Now, to make things even more interesting than usual this evening, I'm going to include some slides, hence a little box in the corner so that you can get the big slide, because I think the visuals really consolidate the learning. I'm also going to show a very short video clip, and I'm going to ask you to ponder the moral of the story, and then we'll discuss it, and some survey and poll questions so that I can get your responses. So we'll start with finishing how to break an unwanted habit that we started last month. Then we'll actually spend a minute, maybe 2 minutes, doing a mind game that is critical in helping you break an unwanted habit, and also critical in stopping unwanted non-hungry eating. So it's a really valuable skill. And then directly I'll answer your questions, and they include: how can I speed up my metabolic rate? How can I preserve muscle as I age? Are the calories in food changed by cooking? And this was a great question, even though the person apologized for it. Some clarification around the effect of high intensity exercise. Is mouthwash a good idea? What to do about loose skin after weight loss? And more. So stay tuned, because there are no ad breaks. So we will start with reviewing how to break an unwanted habit. So we'll start with the first survey question. Over to you, Craig. Can you ask the question around breaking an unwanted habit? So can you just answer? Remember, your answers are anonymous, so there's going to be no judgment. I'm just interested and curious. Did you answer the questions relating to breaking an unwanted habit that I set last month? So yes, sort of, no. Oops, forgot all about it.
I'll share those results for you now.
Okay, so about a third of people, quarter to a third of people, yes. Well, look, more than half, most of the questions. That's fantastic. If you weren't motivated, that is important feedback. Don't judge yourself for it. It just means that that's not important enough to you. So spend your energy on things that are more important. And if you forgot, that's also perhaps not important enough to you, because we really do make the time for the things that are most important to us. So thank you very much. We can close that now. So let's review the first 5 steps, and then I'll finish with the last 5 steps. So firstly, if you haven't already done it, jot it down now. But yes, the first question was, what was the negative habit, the unwanted habit that you wanted to break? Write it down. For example, mindless snacking. The second question, and this is a really important one to answer, is why do you want to stop that habit? What are some specific benefits that you're going to get? Can you get excited about it? Because if you can't get excited about it, chances are you're just not going to last the distance. Then thirdly, this relates to the previous question, how will you feel in a month's time if you no longer have this habit? I mean, how much better is it going to make you feel? And have the attitude, very, very importantly, this is the first of the next steps, but have the attitude that hard doesn't mean bad, and that everything is about personal growth, and breaking a habit is bigger than the habit. Anytime you want to change or anytime you want to improve, your health and fitness, it's always bigger than that, because it's about you proving to yourself that you can change and that you can commit to what's important to you. And then finally, did you identify a trigger, either an emotional trigger or an external trigger? So they were the first 5 questions. Now, the next thing to answer is, and it's like saying, why are you doing this habit? What is the reward or the payoff that you're currently receiving from performing that habit? And it's usually, it makes me feel good in the moment. Obviously, it doesn't make you feel good in the long term, otherwise you wouldn't want to break the habit. But in the moment, it must be providing you with something positive. Or some people just say, look, I just do it on autopilot. So if there is an identifiable trigger, can you remove it? And I'll give you a really a quick example. A couple of years ago, I had a woman who said she was addicted to Krispy Kreme donuts. It was the habit that she wanted to break. And she said she just couldn't help herself. Every time she drove past the Krispy Kreme donuts shop on the way home from work, she had to stop. So I said, okay, why don't you try driving home via a different route so you don't actually see the shop? She said, I don't know if it'll work. I don't know if I'll then worry about it when I get home, but she gave it a go. Guess what? When she no longer drove past the Krispy Kreme donut shop on the way home, she didn't actually think to get the donuts. So sometimes, not always, there is just an external trigger that if you remove the trigger, you actually remove the habit that goes with it. So that's an important thing to clarify. If, however, the habit is giving you an emotional reward, then the important thing is to actually feel the feeling of discomfort when you don't give yourself the reward. And we're going to do that exercise now. But before we do that, just contemplate what is actually the easiest way to break a habit. The easiest way is to replace it with a different habit. So an example would be, if it was you wanted to cut down on soft drink or cut down on drinking alcohol, the simplest way would be to replace it with, say, water, a healthy beverage. So if you can think of a way to replace that habit, and it might be something really left field. If it's every afternoon, I feel a slump, say you're working from home and you're typing every afternoon, 3 o'clock, I just have to go out there for a biscuit and a cup of tea. Nothing wrong with a cup of tea, but you might not want the biscuit. This is going to seem out of left field, but why not, instead of taking that break as a food break, why don't you do a bout of high intensity exercise, just 30 seconds, running on the spot, pull out a skipping rope, put on a piece of music, and just dance around the room, even just sitting there and allowing yourself to listen to music. Anything that replaces that habit, because sometimes it's not the specific habit that you want, but it is just the feeling that it gives you or just the break that you want. But if none of that applies, then this is the ultimate way. You want to do the habit, just pause and become aware of your body. And I'd like you to do this right now. Close your eyes and firstly bring your attention to your breathing and take a slow, deep, conscious breath. All the way in, feel your lungs expand, and all the way out. And now bring your attention to your toes. Do your toes feel warm? Do they feel cold? Are you aware of the fluffy socks housing your toes? Do you feel an energy, a vibration, an itch, a discomfort, a pain? Just become aware of your toes. And then extend that awareness to your entire foot. Is there a painful area? Is there an uncomfortable area? Do your feet feel relaxed or heavy? And then extend that awareness up your legs to your knees. So you're just becoming aware. Now become aware of your thighs, your waist, your chest, your shoulders. Sweep your awareness down your arms to your fingers. With your eyes closed, how do you know you have fingers? Is there a vibration, an energy, a warmth? And now sweep your awareness up to your face, your eyes, your lips, and the top of your head. Take another slow, deep, conscious breath all the way in and all the way out. And open your eyes. Now that was an example of becoming physically aware of your body. You can use a very similar process to become aware of emotions and feelings. And particularly when you want to do a habit and you've decided you don't want to do it, tune into your body and just become aware of what are you feeling? What is the feeling of not doing the habit? Is it a craving? Is it a tightness? Is it an agitation? And just sit with that feeling, with that agitation or with that craving or whatever it is. And it is uncomfortable. There's no two ways about it. But the discomfort doesn't last. And if you can sit with that discomfort, it will dissipate. And if you can just sit there with it, it is so empowering, because if you can sit with your feelings, you can handle anything. Does that make sense? Can I have a reaction, a thumbs up or a yes? Just, it's something that you need to practice to become aware of. Because discomfort is actually the feeling of rewiring your brain. And any time you do something different, when you get the urge to do that habit, you are loosening the connections between your brain cells that are sustaining that habit. So every little bit helps over time. Now, this is a really interesting concept that they found. If you feel that you're being watched, you're more likely to do the right thing. I'll give you some examples. They put up just a cardboard cutout of a policeman in New York subways because people were fare evading and people were stealing bicycles. The number of people who would evade fares and try to break the law and steal the bicycles dropped dramatically when they just had the cardboard cutout of the policeman there, because they felt they were watched, even though they knew it wasn't real. If they put a pair of eyes on an honesty jar in a canteen where you just put in coins to serve yourself coffee, but there's nobody actually supervising, people are far more likely to be honest when they're being watched. And if you stick a pair of eyes on your fridge, even though you know it's fake, you are more likely to pause and think before you eat. So it's just a little tip. You might want to put a pair of eyes somewhere where you're doing that habit, and you're actually going to be less likely to do it. Whoops, as I've just dropped my watch, because you feel that you're being watched. How long are you going to have to do this for? Can you remember how long it takes to make or break a habit? They've tested people and everybody says 21 days. That's rubbish. That number was plucked out of somebody's imagination. The studies have found that it takes anything from 18 days so maybe even less than 3 weeks, up to 254 days, up to 8 months, with an average of 66 days. So if you just persevere, so average would be 2 months. And if you just persevere for that period of time, it will dissipate. Unfortunately, we live in a culture of impatience and we want everything immediately. But as I said, because change, breaking a habit, is more than the habit itself, it's about who you're becoming. And if you continue to tell yourself, I'm growing, I'm actually changing my identity, because now I can call myself a non-smoker, a non-snacker, a moderate drinker, somebody who savors their food. When you change your identity, that's when real change happens and lasts. And the last thing I just want to remind you of is, if you do the habit, even though you said to yourself you wouldn't, what are you going to say to yourself? Remember to tell yourself, this is feedback, not failure. What prompted me to do the habit even though I wanted to break it? What are you going to say to yourself? Get into the routine of saying, this is feedback, not failure. What can I learn from this? And even if you don't have an immediate answer, just saying that to yourself, not beating up on yourself, means you're more likely to keep at it and persevere. All right. So let's move straight on to your, was that helpful? I always like to sort of pause, give it a bit of time to sink in. Okay. Moving on to the first question I was asked. So it was, I have a slow metabolism. What can I do to speed it up? I've heard that caffeine and chili can help. The first thing I want to say is, when people talk about having a slow metabolism, what they really mean is they believe they have a slow basal metabolic rate, abbreviated BMR. Now, it sounds pedantic, but it is important to differentiate between metabolism and metabolic rate. Metabolism is simply a whole series of chemical reactions that converts the food that you eat into energy. Whereas metabolic rate is the speed at which you burn energy. Just breathing, pumping blood around your body, thinking, just moving around your day. And a lot of people think that if they have a slow metabolic rate, as in they are slow to burn energy, that is why they are unable to shed excess body fat. And that's why they gain body fat. Research has found that a slow metabolic rate is not the reason that people find it difficult to shed excess body fat. Firstly, I'd like to ask the person who asked this question, how do you know you have a slow metabolic rate? Did somebody tell you? Because how did they measure it? Unless you undergo, a lot of fancy machinery and actually go to a lab, you can't calculate your basal metabolic rate. Yes, you can go to a website, type in your age, your height, your weight, your gender, your activity level, and they'll spit out a number, but it's a very rough estimate. So the first thing is, don't get hung up about a slow metabolic rate, because that's not the cause of the issue. Let's put up the next survey question. What do you think can speed up? Even though I said it's not that, there are scientifically validated ways that you can speed up your basal metabolic rate. And therefore it does mean you will burn more calories more quickly. And hence that helps us shed excess body fat. So which of the following do you think has been scientifically validated to speed up your metabolic rate? You can tick more than one. What do you think? Okay, well, as it happens, every single one of those things will increase your metabolic rate. How fascinating is that? Why? Let me leave this up while I go through them. Okay, taking amphetamines, because they are drugs that actually do, speed up your metabolic rate, but they're addictive, they make you anxious. You don't want to be taking amphetamines. Drinking caffeinated beverages, it does increase your metabolic rate, but we do acclimatize. So drinking coffee, copious amounts of coffee is not going to lead to weight loss in the long run, because we do acclimatize. Eating chilies does, hot, spicy food, because it contains a chemical capsaicin, which does increase your metabolic rate. Again, the studies haven't been done to see whether it does it long term, but it certainly does it short term. So I think if you do, eat a lot of spicy food, it probably does speed up your metabolic rate a bit. Gaining muscle, definitely. And that's because muscle is what we call metabolically active tissue. If you have two people exactly the same weight, the one with more muscle is going to have a faster metabolic rate. Interestingly, gaining body fat also speeds up your metabolic rate. Why? Because the more weight you're carrying around, the more effort it takes to move your body around, whether it's because of muscle or fat, the harder you have to work to move your body around, the faster your metabolic rate. So people who carry a lot of excess body fat actually have a faster metabolic rate than people who are very slim, because a slim person isn't carrying a lot of weight around. Their body does actually less work. But as I said, the more muscle is also heavier than fat. So still, to make it clear, the more muscle you have, the faster your metabolic rate, but the more fat you have, all other things being equal, that also speeds up your metabolic rate. I hope I haven't confused you there. Being exposed to extreme temperatures. Do you know that air conditioning has actually been shown to be a contributor to gaining body fat, because our bodies don't have to work or expend any energy regulating our body temperature? So this is why making life too easy and too comfortable isn't always a good thing. Our body actually likes to have to work a little bit. And finally, so there's the two temperatures. So the other things, thank you, we can close that now. The other things that influence how fast or slow our metabolism is are gender. Men and women, even if they've got all the same body composition, a man will always have a faster metabolic rate. That's probably due to testosterone. What else have I not? Oh yes, your gut microbiome. So your gut bacteria, and that is something we don't yet know how to change, so that you shift your bacteria to the ones that burn more calories, apart from eating a healthy diet. And if you have specific illnesses like an underactive or overactive thyroid, your thyroid also has a big influence on your metabolic rate. So, but you don't want to have it too fast. You don't want to have it too slow. I'm just making you aware that a genuine cause of significant slow metabolic rate is an underactive thyroid. But you'd get other symptoms. You'd feel tired. You'd feel very sluggish. You would start to lose your hair. You'd go pale. So that is something that you would probably see your GP about. Okay, so in answer to the person's question, how can I increase my basal metabolic rate, burn calories more quickly? Do you know the simplest, most effective way would be to carry a 20-kilogram backpack around all day? Why? Because that backpack will make you work harder just getting around doing your normal things. That backpack will also help you build muscle. So alternatively, if you don't want to do that, do go to the gym or do get some weights and start to pump weights to build up your muscle. The other thing that I wanted to mention was obviously eating a few, bit of spicy food, chilies, moving in general. The more you chew your food, the more you fidget, the more you stand up and down all day. All those things are going to just increase your calorie consumption every day. But having answered all those questions, it's still not something to get hung up about. Okay. This leads straight on to the next question, which was, you mentioned in the last webinar, sorry, I need to read the questions. You mentioned in the last webinar that 30 seconds of fast running on the spot charges our mitochondria and changes our biochemistry. Can you speak a little bit more about this, and how can we improve cell energy and build muscle? I fear my muscles are fading fast. So the answer to the second part of that question, how can I build more muscle, is exactly everything that I have just said. But one additional thing, and this is extraordinary, do not underestimate the power of visualizing, even when it comes to strengthening and building muscles. Now, let me just make the point that studies have found that strong muscles are more important than big muscles in terms of reducing your risk of diabetes, reducing inflammation, keeping you healthier as we age. So you don't have to bulk up. Strength, hand grip, a measure of your hand grip. You can go to a gym and get your hand grip measured. If you can increase your hand grip, which tends to reflect your overall strength, that is the best thing you can do. And the reason I put this slide up is a fascinating study was done with a group of healthy people. And what they did was they put their arm in a cast and left it there for 4 weeks. And half of the group were told to just do nothing, go about their day, see what happened. They do pay these subjects, otherwise who'd want their arm in a cast for 4 weeks? So half of them did nothing, just went about their daily lives, and the other half were told to visualize exercising the muscle in the cast every day. So there's no way they could actually move it or exercise it, but they had 10 minutes a day. They visualized, they had a trainer teaching them, telling them what to visualize. Then they were set on their own 10 minutes a day. When they took the cast off and measured their strength and looked at the muscle wasting, because obviously when your arm is in a cast, you will get muscle wasting. Both groups did lose some strength, but those who visualized lost only half the strength that those who didn't visualize lost. And their muscles hadn't wasted as much. That is extraordinary. And the reason is, when we visualize ourselves moving our muscles, we are actually sending electrical signals to those muscles and stimulating those muscles. So we are strengthening them to a degree. It's not as powerful as doing the real thing, but as you can see, it's at least 50% as powerful. Another study, this time they didn't put people in casts, they actually just sent half of a group to the gym to actually lift weights every day. And the other group were told just stay at home and visualize lifting weights at the gym. And they tested their strength before and after it was 4 weeks. Those who went to the gym increased their strength by 30%. No surprise, that's why we go to the gym. Those who stayed home and only visualized increased their strength 22%. That's only an 8% difference between actually doing the exercises and visualizing yourself doing the exercises. Now, this is not to encourage you to be a couch potato and just get away with sitting there visualizing, but it is to say visualizing helps immensely, especially if you are in pain or have limitations to exercising. Visualizing is now used to help stroke patients regain their functioning. So do not underestimate the value of this. So that's the answer to how to strengthen your muscles. Now, the answer to how does those intense bouts of physical activity affect our mitochondria? The first thing is that we change. I'm actually going to send you the references for this, because you really need a firm grasp of biochemistry and physiology to understand all the minutiae. But the first thing that happens is when we have those really intense bouts of exercise, 30 to 60 seconds of all out, we actually influence the functioning of 1,000 different genes. That is extraordinary. Thousands of genes are changed. We also change enzymes within our cells so that we burn fat more effectively. We actually create more mitochondria within our muscle cells. And mitochondria are the organelles, can you see why this is getting complicated? Are the organelles that help us utilize energy more effectively. And exercise turns off inflammation, because once again, it affects the hormones and the chemicals that are circulating in our blood. So for the real minutiae, I will send you the references, but it does get complex. Now, the thing is, they found that actually long 1 to 2 hours of moderate exercise a day has the same effect. But the reason that the intense exercise is getting so much attention is because people don't have 1 to 2 hours a day to run or cycle. So if you love it, if you could go dancing for 2 hours a day, go dancing 2 hours a day. Most people don't have that time. So it's not that the intense exercise is 100% better than long and slow. It's most people don't have time for long and slow. Personally, I suggest you mix it up. Do some days where you do really intense, even just 10 minutes of 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, or 1 minute on, 1 minute off, or 20 minutes of not quite as high, but still alternate, or alternate that with some days where you just go for a more longer, slower walk. Okay, I hope that's answered those questions. So now the next question I thought was fabulous, and it was, does cooking change the calories in food? And I'm going to ask you that question. Please put up the next survey question, Craig. Have I missed I don't think I've missed a survey question, have I? Right. Which has more calories, raw or steamed celery? Raw? Cooked? Or, come on, don't be stupid. They're both exactly the same, because you haven't actually, assuming you haven't added anything to it. You've just, steamed it.
Evenly spreads thus far.
Interesting. Okay, so we've got, more than half of people said the raw has more calories. Wow. A few said the cooked and some said the same. Well, you're going to be absolutely fascinated by this. Raw celery has fewer calories than cooked celery. Why? Okay. Celery is just a good example. Okay. So the average person is going to extract maybe, let me look this up. I'll get the numbers exactly right for you. Sorry, I did look it up, so I'd get the numbers exactly right. Okay. The average person extracts 6 calories from eating a small piece of raw celery. Now, if you cook that piece of celery, it will increase the calories 5-fold to about 30 calories. Why? Because cooking that piece of celery starts to break down the cellulose, which is the indigestible fiber. And that means your body needs to do less work to digest it. And depending on the specific population of your gut microorganisms, that number can change a little bit as well. So the principle is most other vegetables, the more they are cooked or processed, the more calories they will have. The more calories we will absorb. It's not that they will have more calories. We'll absorb more calories because it takes less effort to digest them. Because digesting food takes, burns some calories. It's called the thermic effect of food. And even the calories in meat, in poultry, in fish, even the calories we extract from that change with cooking. And in general, I don't suggest you eat raw meat, but the less you cook your steak, the more rare your meat, the more effort it's going to take to digest it, and therefore the fewer calories you'll extract from it. Bring on the sashimi. We wonder why the Japanese are so slim, because they don't cook most of their food. And protein, and then if you really want to break down the minutiae, it takes more energy to break down, roughly, a really, really sort of rough average is we use at least 10% of the calories in a food in order to digest that food. It takes more to digest proteins than it does to digest carbohydrates and fats. So if you eat 2 meals of exactly the same written calories, calculated calories, but one is higher in protein and one is higher in fat or carbohydrate, you'll absorb fewer calories from the high protein meal because it just takes more effort to digest it. So that question was a very, very perceptive question. The person apologized and said, I hope this isn't a daft question. Not a daft question at all. And the second part of that question was, so when I'm, cooking something and I'm told that, and put the ingredients into an app and then it tells me the calories, how do I know whether it's raw or cooked? I don't know. I actually don't know what calculations they use. And that is one of the reasons why I'm reluctant to use calorie counting, because it is so inaccurate. Your best guide is all plant food has fewer calories, than your fats and your proteins, simply because they're more full of water and they're more full of fiber. So the rule of thumb is plant food generally has fewer calories. Protein food, it's harder to absorb the calories, and the less you cook the food, the fewer calories you're going to absorb, because it's going to take more calories to actually digest the food. So that was a really excellent question. And it interestingly ties in with the next question I received. Somebody was told by somebody who was on a diet that there is such a thing as negative calorie foods. In other words, if you eat, and particularly it's cucumber, celery, radishes, if you eat these foods, because they are just about all water and fiber, and you eat them raw, you're actually going to burn more calories in the process of digestion than you are going to absorb from the food itself. True or false? Craig, next survey question. All right, thank you. The answer to that question is no. There is no such thing as a negative calorie food, even though radishes have so few calories, you will still absorb a small amount. And the reason is, even the indigestible fibers, even later, the indigestible fibers travel down to your colon where bacteria act on them, and at a final stage, release a few more calories. So unfortunately, that is just a really good marketing myth. But it just really annoys me that there's so much misinformation out there, because it sounds plausible. As you can see, it's actually very plausible, but it's just not true. So you're still going to get some calories from those. Okay. Now I'm going to play you, or Craig is going to play you, a really short video. Now, I think this is absolutely fascinating. And while you're watching, I'd like you to consider, what's the moral of this story? Over to you, Craig. I think I have to stop slide sharing, don't I?
You do indeed.
I will. So I will escape. I will stop sharing, and then I'll come back.
All right, here we go. I'm going to share this, and hopefully everybody can hear this.
It's incredible. It's almost rose-like in its flavour. It's juicy. Juicy. It's definitely the most impressive strawberry I've ever eaten in my life. Ah, more strawberries.
This is a new variety which Okuda-san has spent the last few years perfecting.
Remember the colour, looking at it going, wow, they look really red. Tell me about this. What's this then? Yeah.
This strawberry is now thought to be the very best you can buy in the whole world.
Smell. Wow, that's intense. It's heavy. How much is this strawberry then? 50,000 yen. I don't want all of these. Just one. Wow. I didn't know what to say. 350 English pound for that strawberry. Just think about that for a minute. I mean, it's such a leap from 20 to 350 pound. Do you drive a Ferrari? You do, don't you? You have a set of Ferraris around the back there. I have never drank or eaten any food that's more expensive than that. Would you mind holding that for me a second? Thank you. This is all my money. 2, 3. I understand this guy. His passion for strawberries is incredible. He invented this. He grew this thing for strawberry. 50,000 yen, my friend. Thanks, Del. I'll give it a go. Like, makes you happy. He's happy. He's got 50,000 yen, but it actually makes you really happy. It's like an apple meets a strawberry, meets a grape, meets a whole bunch of red roses that you smell it. It's just beautiful. He creates the best strawberries in the world, without a shadow of a doubt. Wow. Wow.
Okuda.
Okay. So have a little think about that. And Craig, could you please put up the next survey question and see what you think well, I mean, this is my take on that story. There's no right or wrong. But what do you think the moral of this story is? Some people have more money than sense. Life is enriched by quality, not quantity. When we slow down and really taste our food, a small amount can be incredibly satisfying. We've lost our sense of awe, wonder, and connection to many things in life, both simple and complex. Thank you very much for sharing. Well, I thought it could be any of the above. I just wanted to see your reaction, and I wanted to make you think about it. But what I got out of that was that really something so simple can be so powerful. And what it reminded me of was the fact when I was growing up, treats were really treats, were things you had rarely. I couldn't wait for my birthday because it was the only time in the year I got a specific cake. My granny was a fantastic cake maker. And on my birthday, I got to choose the cake. On Dad's birthday, he got to choose the cake. And on Mum's birthday, she got to choose the cake. 3 times a year. And you'd so make that last because you knew you wouldn't get it again for another year. And you were so excited about it. And I think it is such a shame that everything is available 24/7. So we don't get excited about food anymore. And I can remember, when we didn't get fruit all year round. I mean, I get excited about mangoes. Guess what? Because we can't get mangoes all year round. I get excited about persimmons and mangosteen because they're some of the fruits we don't get all year round. Custard apples. They're only available for a limited period of time. And it is just wonderful to have that sense of excitement around things. And I don't see that in people anymore. I mean, I'm not going to go through my whole childhood, but I know all the name days and the Russian family that we'd visit at Easter, and they made this amazing Russian cheesecake thing. I loved going to those people because they were lovely people. But that cheesecake was a big driving force. I'd behave because, I'd get a big piece of cheesecake. And you don't gain excess body fat by eating special things once a year. It happens when you just start to eat things mindlessly and use food to manage emotions rather than, for the nutrition and nurturing and sharing and really special pleasure that it can be. So that was my take when I saw that video, and I just wanted to share that with you. All right. I know we're out of time, so I'll really quickly answer the last few questions. I got a question on loose skin. I will email you a detailed answer, the person who asked me that question. I'll touch on it now, but I haven't ignored your question and you will get the answer that you wanted. So I will screen share again because it's share my screen. So I'll give you the last few slides. Somebody asked about additives and said, how do we know additives are bad and the specifics of how they affect us? I'll talk about 2. Emulsifiers and titanium dioxide, because the titanium dioxide research has only recently emerged. But emulsifiers, what are they? They improve the texture of foods. They stop liquids and fats from separating. So they're particularly used in sauces, dressings, and ice creams. And these 2, E566 and E433, have been particularly studied. And what they found is that they increase the production of a bacterial protein called flagellin, which increases inflammation and has been linked to obesity, type 2 diabetes, and inflammatory bowel diseases. So the good news, so they've actually, tested this on rats and tested this on simulated human guts. So these emulsifiers, the way they work is they change the metabolites or the chemicals produced by our gut bacteria, leading to inflammation. The good news was when they stopped giving the rats the emulsifiers, they actually, the inflammatory molecules stop being produced. So you can reverse it. It's not like, well, I've been eating ice cream all my life, it's too late, I can't do anything about it. You can. We can reverse things that affect our gut bacteria. And the other one that was recently, this has been around for a while, but the latest research was on a chemical called titanium dioxide, E171. It is a white food coloring. It's also used in paints and industrially, but they use it for anything, lollies, white chocolate, even packaged processed food, potato-y things, anything that they want to bring out a bright white color. So again, it is also used in ice cream. E171. They've actually found that this also increases inflammation, particularly in the bowel, and can lead to, long-term bowel upsets and irritable bowel syndrome. And they didn't find this, but if I'm going to extrapolate, increased inflammation in the gut over a lifetime can increase the risk of cancer. So I'm just saying, it's not what the study found that it caused cancer, but it just did cause inflammation in the gut. So every additive that they study, they find that it ultimately does affect us in a negative way. So that's why I wanted to mention that. And final survey question. Do you use mouthwash? Great. Can you just pop it up so we can see? Yes, no, sometimes. And why does it matter?
Okay, we've got
Mouthwash got to do. It's not like something you eat or swallow.
all right. We've got results in very quickly on that one. I'll share those for you.
Yes, no, sometimes. Okay, why do I ask? There's no right or wrong. I'm just asking. Why do I ask? Because recent research has now found that people who use mouthwash consistently, like just about every day, have higher blood pressure, systolic blood pressure, than people who don't. Why on earth? It's not like you're swallowing. What effect does mouthwash have on blood pressure? It turns out that there is bacteria in our mouth, it's on our tongue, that produce an enzyme that is required to turn nitrate into nitrite, which then becomes nitric oxide. And nitric oxide is a chemical that relaxes our blood vessel walls and helps to lower our blood pressure. And when we eat nitrate-containing foods like beetroot, dark leafy greens, lots of vegetables, we need that enzyme to convert the nitrate in the food into the nitrite, into the nitric oxide to keep our blood pressure nice and low. But if you take mouthwash, it actually kills off the bacteria, or at least it changes the activity of the bacteria that produce that enzyme. And without that enzyme, we can't make nitrite, which means we can't get nitric oxide. So if you have high blood pressure, don't just reduce sugar and don't just reduce salt, but stop using mouthwash. It's not that mouthwash is never good. Sometimes some people have have very low acidity in their mouth. Mouthwash tends to increase acidity as well. So if your dentist says you must take mouthwash for a couple of weeks in order to fix gingivitis or some kind of gum problem, take it, but don't take it for the rest of your life. It's just treat it like any medicine. And I just think it's just so important to remember that anything we put in our mouths, even if we don't swallow, things we put on our skin, it's still absorbed and can still affect our gut bacteria and our health. Okay, the final question was how to increase collagen and elastin in our skin. If you've shed a lot of excess body weight, and first I'd like to congratulate the person for shedding the excess body weight, fantastic. But as a result of that and cesareans, they've now got loose skin. Is there anything you can do? Maybe. Some people, over the course of a couple of years, your skin will tighten and look good again. But the key here is the reason that it sags is because you lose collagen and elastin, which are the two proteins in your skin that keep it tight and firm and smooth. And as we age, we have less collagen and elastin, and the quality reduces. So is there anything you can do to increase that? Number one, don't smoke. Smoking destroys the collagen in our skin. Number two, pump weights, because it not only strengthens our muscles, it actually strengthens our skin and it builds muscle under the skin. Keep well hydrated. Vitamin C is very important for good skin. So apart from your fruit and vegetables, given that vitamin C is not going to do you any harm and you can't overdose, really, unless you took the whole bottle, you're not going to overdose. So, 500 to 1,000 milligrams a day of vitamin C, I'd take it if skin was an issue. Similarly, a few studies have found that omega-3 fatty acids may improve your skin firmness. So again, 1,000 to 6,000 milligrams a day would even be okay. But be careful because omega-3s can thin your blood. So just be careful if you're on a blood thinning agent or aspirin or anti-inflammatories, check with your doctor whether you can add fish oil tablets because you don't want to bleed out. And what not to waste your money on is firming creams or collagen powders. Why? The firming creams, the molecule is too big. You won't absorb the collagen. It has to be built from the inside out. Now, the creams do make your skin look better for a little while, but it's not going to give you lasting benefits. Don't waste your money. And the powders just, studies haven't found that they actually make a difference. But if you do want to ingest natural collagen, I'd recommend bone broth. It is a source of collagen apart from, other really healthy things. Of course, there's body contouring, laser, various radiotherapies. The person who asked me this question, I will email you a much more detailed answer, but I did just want to give you an overview. So, I forgot that I had another slide on that. So it's an eclectic sort of set of answers, but I've had a range of questions. So I really hope I've answered them to your satisfaction. And are there any questions that you have as a result of what I've been saying? I'm going to stop screen sharing because that will then allow me to see your questions. Do the different diets one does during life affect your metabolism in a negative way? Okay. If you start at 100 kilograms and you shed 20 kilograms of excess body fat, if you're shedding more fat than muscle, as long as you're maintaining a considerable amount of your muscle, your metabolic rate won't slow down too much. That is why it's really important to maintain physical exercise so that you maintain your metabolic rate. However, if you go from 100 kilograms down to 80 kilograms, your metabolic rate will be slower than somebody who's always been 80 kilograms for about a year or two. And it's called metabolic adaptation. So yes, this is why it can be very difficult this is why sustaining weight loss is so difficult, because for a long time, for some people it's months, but for some people it can take up to 2 years for your metabolic rate to go back up to what the average person at 80 kilograms would be. Does that make sense? And that is why physical exercise and actually building muscle and strengthening your muscles is critical, a critical factor in maintaining weight loss. Okay. What was another question?
Your next question is, any recommendations where to learn effective visualization?
Visualization. Okay. I don't know, but I suspect there's going to be apps. If you just Google, visualization apps, I suspect you'll find them. But that's I will look that up because I'm interested myself. So yes. Next question.
The last question was really, what about toothpaste?
I don't know. I will put that on the list for next time. I don't know that. Yeah, nothing's come up when I've done sort of searches on mouth bacteria, but I will see. I agree. It's something that we use 3 times a day, some people. I always use sort of the minimal amount possible. I never use whitening toothpaste because it can erode your enamel. But, toothpaste does definitely reduce the risk of tooth decay, but it's also really important to floss. And I think, possibly flossing and gargling just water and using as little toothpaste as possible might be just as good as using a lot of toothpaste. It's a great question.
One for the to-do list.
Yes, indeed.
That was it. That was the question.
Okay. Can I have I would like to know some reactions. Was it valuable? What was your biggest, if you just type in, what was your biggest take home from today? Those people who ask me questions, I will give you more detailed answers. I just didn't have time to go through all the detail because I can see some of you there that asked me the questions. So I don't want you to think, oh, it's a bit of a skimpy answer. I will give you a more detailed answer.
Here we go, Helena. We got to work on changing bad habits. Yes. Feedback is not failure. Changing habits.
Great.
Yeah, that's great to know about visualization when you can't do as much exercise as you'd like to. Yeah, wow. Yeah. Thank you very much. The habit changing section, I got a lot from that.
Great.
Replace a bad habit with a good habit.
Yes, yes.
Habits have obviously hit hard tonight, which is great.
Good.
That's about it.
Thank you very much for joining me again. I look forward to seeing you next month. As soon as a question comes up for you, feel free to email it, through my website or in reply to the webinar reminders. And I look forward to hearing about your successes again next month.
Great. Thanks, Helena. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. And we'll see you next month.
Thank you. Take care.